Bigger than capes.
Give me some
Oh, yeah. I was looking forward to it, and then I watched it.
Oh, dry.
Hello, welcome to Bigger Than Capes. I'm Zach, and this week I'm joined by Will. How you doing?
Hello, I'm good, thanks, buddy. How you doing?
I'm still as fine as always, like.
Fine as dandies.
Damn Skippy. Nothing really changes, does it, Will? We just...
Nope, every day's the same. Like being in the Marvel universe.
Everything's fine. It all just resets to the exact same point it ended at.
Yeah, and you think there's going to be change. And then you wake up the next day and nothing's changed.
You were wrong, yeah. That's a nice perky opener for us this week.
That's enough of the bleakness.
It's all uphill from here, right? Hey.
Yeah, it's getting warmer. It's raining less. That's something.
This is true. Constant threat of snow. That's what I'm all about.
Snow's the best. Of all winter weathers, though, snow's the best.
Oh, definitively, yeah. I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah, wind and rain suck balls, but snow is.
No one else is here. They can't argue with us.
No, they cannot.
Suckers. I like to think that somewhere Matt and Angela are screaming about this. I don't.
Big wind fans.
Yeah. Can't agree on much, but they both bloody love wind. Don't know where I'm going with this. What, you want to have a catch up or some such? What have you been doing? You've been busy? I mean,
as you said, every day is more or less the same. So I've not been hugely busy. My last read was Jonathan Hickman's Pax Romana.
Ooh, tell me more.
I thought was completely rad about a pair of scientists sort of invent time travel, and the Vatican co-opt it to send back a group of agents to effectively make sure that the Roman Empire, the Holy Roman Empire, never ends.
Okay, I mean, I know this is something I've got the PDF of from a past Humble Bundle, and it does sound like my kind of thing. I think I will inevitably get to it. I think at some point. It's
in an unusual format in that it's not panels. Most pages tend to be kind of a single image or a montage image, and then sometimes just have they're treated like excerpts of transcripts or bits of text, and you might just have one image of people sat around a table, and then the other half of the page is just text. So it's
that's interesting. That's
pretty unusual form of graphic novel, but in classic Hickman fashion, it's well scripted. It's a good story with a few twists and turns. It is just a one-off graphic novel, so it doesn't have his usual sort of 150 issue hints. But it has his kind of classic, some of his classic notes of storytelling, and I thought it's real cool, that one.
That's cool, and it's interesting when he doesn't have that kind of look, behold what I have created, kind of world to fall back on. And it's like, I just did the one volume, guys. Don't worry, it's going to be okay.
But that's it. That name that I said 70 issues ago. Well, now it's important.
Yeah, I think I can definitely get into the idea of occasional bits of his work that are standalone, not epic forever. And hell, I suppose there's always that risk that it's a swerve, and at some point everything will tie together in some huge Hickman masterstroke.
Has East of West ended yet?
Impossible to say, Will. I
thought I read that it was coming to its end. I'm not quite up to date, but
no, neither am I. It's something that I always find I get up to date with, and then ultimately get annoyed that
you can't just.
Yeah, I can't. I know I'm going to have to reread it. I think it's that kind of series where there's so much happening that ultimately he could refer to something from 30 issues ago that I don't know about anymore.
Yeah, it's incredibly dense.
I don't think it's finished, but I think it is meant to be wrapping up, because I know he's launched a bunch of new stuff in the last couple of years. So
I recently finished Black Science, which was something I started reading, I mean, probably close to 10 years ago.
It's got to be the best part of, I would have said.
I thought that nailed the landing.
I've still not finished it. I inevitably will. It's all in my house. So
you expecting a happy ending?
Oh yeah. I think it'll be full of joy and
Rick Remond as usual.
Usual perky kind of upbeat crescendo of an ending. Yeah, that's what I expect.
Keep those expectations.
I will, thanks. I've gone the other way, and in one of those rare moments, read a book based on real things that have happened. So I read Mike Allred and Steve Horton's Bowie, Stardust, Ray Guns, and Moon Age Daydreams. Baby,
very nice.
Had to write that down because it's such a damn long name. We're both Bowie fans, so I feel like we're the target audience for this.
Yeah, I mean, it combines Bowie and comics and Mike Allred.
And them's things I like.
Triple threat.
Yeah, it's real pretty, and probably only covers like the first 5 to 10 years of Bowie's career, but it's a damn good read. And
yeah, he's an interesting dude, man. Every year of his career was ace.
Yeah, I do hope we get like a continuation, so we get like a second volume with an equally long name that's like Bowie in the 80s and then Bowie in the awkward 90s. And
Bowie tries cocaine and then Bowie tries ecstasy.
Yeah, I'm there for that. I think that's I didn't know, but that is apparently who I am as a comic book reader now. I just want installments of Bowie's life in collected hardcovers.
I don't think I have it anymore, but I used to have a DVD of some like Bowie music videos, particularly throughout the 80s, and a lot of them are directed by David Mamet.
Okay,
they're incredible, like cheese. They're such a joy to watch. Have you ever seen the video for like Loving the Alien?
I don't think I have. No, I definitely should.
Little China Girl.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
I mean, that's a racial abomination, but it's a weirdly compelling watch.
I think that's the thing. There's this occasional problem with like out of date music videos where you'll look. I mean, out of date films as well, where you'll look back and go, oh no, this isn't okay. And
this will refer to our later discussion, I think, as well.
Yeah, I think this might come around again. Who knew? But other than Bowie, and then obviously falling into the black hole of Bowie had some good stuff, good music, good films, good mostly. Yeah.
Oh man, his turn as Tesla in
Prestige.
The Prestige, just superb.
Shouldn't be, but probably some of my favourite Bowie casting, even though. Yeah. By no means one of my favourite films. I just think he fits.
Oh, I mean, that's maybe where our taste diverge a little bit, because I love The Prestige.
It's not a film that I dislike. It's just a film that every time I watch, it kind of, I don't know. Every time I think I've left it long enough that I'll have like forgotten about it and I'll appreciate it in a new light. It's never true. As soon as I put it on, it's like, oh, I remember exactly how all of this goes. Maybe that shows that I saw it too much when I was younger.
So has it got Batman, Wolverine, Alfred, Scarlett Johansson in it?
Yeah, pretty sure she is. Yeah,
Scarlet Witch, Bowie, who is
himself. Oh, she's not Scarlet Witch. She's Black Widow.
Jeez Louise, Black Widow. I've been watching too much Scarlet Witch and Vision.
Yeah, try and blame it on something else.
Yeah. Rather than my own stupid ignorance.
Don't get me wrong, much like a film we're going to discuss today, it has got a really good cast for some reason.
Yeah.
I've also, speaking of Marvel, I've finally been trying to read some of the Marvel that I've accumulated and not touched. I've cut myself off on buying new Marvel books now.
Fair.
I need to finish the like 30 I've got before I buy. So I read Meet the Skrulls, Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, and Marvel Boy as well in the last couple of weeks. So that's a real spectrum of Marvel.
That it is.
I recommend Meet the Skrulls the most.
They're the type of books that always attract me a bit more to Marvel. Those like weird side books.
Yeah.
I know now that it's quite a big hit, but I think like Fraction and Aya,
Aja.
Hawkeye was a bit like that. Like when it came out, it just felt like a very annexed bit of story. And despite the fact that it then got like very well appreciated after the fact, like
it's a good run, and I think the kind of wild out there on a limb parts of the Marvel universe are the parts I'm there for.
Yeah. I think that my taste runs contrary to so much of like the populace in terms of Marvel. It's really hard for me to find books because if you look at reviews and stuff, like I've tried a couple of times, but I'm really done with Slott Spider-Man.
Yeah,
and this is supposed to be one of the most celebrated Spider-Man runs, but I'm bored.
I always dipped in and out of it. So I read some of the early stuff. I read Superior, a bit of Worldwide, a bit of all the Spider-Verse stuff. Came back in for the conclusion because I figured that was going to be good. It was. But yeah, I found it very hard to just read all of Slott's Spidey. It's sure is long.
Enough about that.
Yes. Should we do some news? You got some news?
I've got a couple of items of news. First on my list is Unique Studios, spelled Youneek. I've just signed a 10-book deal with Dark Horse.
Okay.
And I've mentioned Unique Studios, I think, a couple of times on the podcast. And
yeah, you have.
Did that write-up of Malika.
Yes, yeah.
For the website. And
that's biggerthancapes.com. Once again, that's biggerthancapes.com.
I came across them a little while ago and started reading some of their stuff, and they're kind of like a superhero universe, but based entirely on African characters and sort of African myth and legend to kind of build them around. They've only got quite a small crop of books so far, but hopefully a deal with Dark Horse will bring them to a wider audience. Yeah,
that would be cool. It's interesting. Dark Horse seems to be making a bunch of deals with a bunch of people. I mean, I know they've got the Comixology Originals deal. They're going to be printing all their trades.
Yeah.
Well, at least some of them. So it seems like Dark Horse are helping a lot of people out, which is kind of weird.
I mean, this is pure speculation because I've got no real knowledge about how the business works. But if I was Dark Horse, I'd be looking at Image and Boom right now, who are like sapping up all these licenses or just producing these like huge selling books. And they're both seem to be scrapping for kind of the bronze medal of comics at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think outside of like Hellboy and then some more historic stuff, Dark Horse, I don't know, they just don't look like they are keeping up at the moment. So perhaps going to pre-existing stuff and almost rebranding it as Dark Horse is a pretty quick way to get some books out.
I mean, it's something we've seen before. I know they did Buffy and Angel for quite a long time and Firefly, which have all now gone to Boom. And,
yeah.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's a lot of Dark Horse that I do love, like all the Black Hammer stuff and, as you mentioned, Hellboy.
Umbrella Academy
titles are available.
Yeah, so Umbrella Academy is still working its way out.
Yeah, I just always feel like they don't have the same kind of non-stop output as Image, or even Boom seems to put more books out these days. I think it's an interesting little contrast.
I think Dark Horse have slightly fallen into that kind of a publisher who sort of reprints a lot and does translated Euro books, or
which by all means is
great.
It's a great market, and I wish more European books got,
but I think it's a hard
translated
market
and distributed.
Yeah, I think it's hard to sustain that when the market is normally looking for more flashy, like modern style action. I think particularly if you are looking at trying to bring in some of the cinema or TV crowd, you've got to try and match what they've seen on screen with what they see on the page, at least to some degree. And I think if you've just come back from watching Infinity War and you flick open, I don't know, it doesn't even have to be a superhero thing, but anything from the 70s, like or earlier, just the difference in the contrast, I think, would be hard to.
Yeah, that's fair. But the deal with Unique does sound promising, and I hope it does bring some variety and some new eyes to both Unique and Dark Horse.
I think that's it. I certainly doubt that Unique are going to like steamroll the market. Somebody offering definitely you something different than everybody else. On the note of Boom and Image, I also read that Keanu Reeves' Berserker, the vowelless Berserker, has outsold Crossover on pre-order. The power of the Reeves.
That's it. Shut it down. We're done here. Huh? I'm going to make a sweeping statement here of truth, and I think Crossover is the best comic of 2021. And we're only 2 issues into it.
And we're only a month into the year. That's a bold claim.
The sheer, like, are you up to date on Crossover? Like 3 issues?
It's just been the 3? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think 4 is probably out, like, I don't know, any day now. But I just think issue 2, I think, is a lot more like exposition and building where we're going. But I thought issue 1 and 3 were just damn good. And I just had a damn good time in issue 3. I was just happy, and it was fun, and it was legitimately unpredictable. And I think if that's the tone for your comic going forward,
I think legitimately unpredictable is absolutely like a stellar mark to have on your comic, because it really is as well. Like, it's hard to see what's going to happen next.
And I think the legitimate threat that I don't know when, but Spawn is coming.
And then Savage Dragon to follow. Like every new issue will be like, which classic Image character, when's Invincible going to turn up?
And I do wonder,
where's Negan?
Somebody, and one of these huge iconic characters, might be Spawn, might be Dragon, might be one of Youngblood, it might be Negan. They're just going to die, aren't they? They're just they're going to make a huge appearance, an incredible entrance, and then just dead. And
splat.
I don't know when, and I don't know how, but I know. And I just want Donnie to know that. I know, man. And I'm ready.
Rocking back to
Keanu.
Berserker. Do you think this is going to start potentially a trend of like finding a celebrity to effectively front your book? I mean, how much of this has Keanu actually written? I guess we'll probably never know, but he gets a co-write credit, and his face is, plastered all over the book. He's just done it with Cyberpunk. Yeah, are we going to see,
It's tough because, all right, firstly, let's just get this right out there. I love Keanu Reeves.
Oh yeah, man. Top guy.
There's no disputing that fact. Them's the facts. And the little like preview video for Berserker that they put on Kickstarter seemed like the extracts from Mr. Reeves talking about the book almost seemed like the book was a surprise to him. Yeah. So I don't know. I kind of feel weird about it, and I wouldn't like to speculate how much input he had into it. And I feel like you have to get a very specific level of celebrity to appeal to a comic buying audience, or to get people who are into said celebrity but not into comics.
Yes.
And it does make me think of, when Umbrella Academy was new, there was an immediate thing about maybe not even a year after Umbrella Academy came out in trade, where it was like, yeah, Pete Wentz from Fall Out Boy's writing a comic as well. Now, I love Fall Out Boy, but there was never a Fallout Boy comic. Pete, as far as I'm aware, Pete Wentz never wrote that book, and I do wonder: is that what this is? That it now? Keanu Reeves is going to do a comic, and then it'll be
just him.
Yeah, and there'll be these constant rumors that Alex Winters is going to do a comic, or.
But that's it. I think it would be. I mean, Keanu Reeves might be one of the biggest kind of names to do it, but you've got people like Stephen Amell.
Yeah,
it was Arrow. I could imagine that happening, and Stephen Amell's like, "I'm going to write a comic, and I'm going to be in it."
See, don't get me wrong. I've also got a lot of love for Stephen Amell, or as I was taught by WWE, Stephen Amell. Gotta really say Amell wrong. Apparently,
yeah,
because he seems like a guy who is just willing to do whatever and run with it. Which, fair play to the man. So I can definitely see him writing a comic based on him being a superhero just cause.
Yeah.
And there's a few, and obviously we've seen other people. Obviously, this is a callback to an earlier reference in the Bowie thing. We've seen Duncan Jones throw out a graphic novel at the end of last year as well through Kickstarter,
which I'm still waiting to turn up, I might add.
Ooh, that is heartbreaking when I know it's like in comic book shops already. Not a fan of that.
In fact, none of my Kickstarters turned up yet, and I know you've got 2 of yours that we went in on the same Kickstarter for. I've got
2. I couldn't think of one. What else did I buy?
Yeah, both the AWA ones.
Oh yeah. Where I
always call them AWA, but it's not. It's a Wave Blue World.
Yes, it's a Wave Blue
Their names
World.
are too similar.
Turned up only like 3 or 4 days ago though, so maybe
fingers crossed.
They did an update on the Kickstarter to say everything's been dispatched, so maybe your house is harder to get to than mine. Yeah. I don't know.
You got to climb a mountain.
I definitely overspent on that though, because I ended up getting like all 4 of their anthologies that you could get, and I shouldn't have.
I see. I think I just went for the two later. The one the Kickstarter was for, and
so it was
whatever the.
Is it maybe Sunday and that other one?
The other one, yeah.
Yeah, I love the other one.
I'll know when it turns up. I've got one more bit of news, and this is a bit more speculative, but it would appear that George Clooney, his production company, along with Brian K. Vaughan, are going to relaunch Buck Rogers.
All right, I thought that was going to end with Batman, and frankly, I'm disappointed.
With George Clooney writing the comic and putting himself in as Batman again to readdress.
To just hit home with an old statement from me, George Clooney is my Batman.
No comment.
Can't argue with the facts. That's kind of weird, but kind of interesting. I mean, is Clooney going to be Buck Rogers? Is that the promise that you're making?
Speculation he might be, but it's more to do. I think it's his production company are going to be funding it, so
it might not be that he's the Buck Rogers we're looking for, but
perhaps not. But I used to watch Buck Rogers as a weean.
I'm kind of curious, but in a terrified way, I guess is the right.
With Brian K. Vaughan attached.
He's a hell of a writer.
He probably could get on and finish Saga, but you know what I mean. It's still worth looking into. I'm
kind of curious enough to see what that could involve and how you kind of spruce Rogers up for Buck Rogers. How you spruce Buck Rogers up for
how you book Spruce Rogers. I think you don't. I think keep it as camp.
Maybe,
and pulpy as possible.
That could work. I always think that when you try and renovate ideas for the 2000s, there are often times when it's no, keep it ridiculous, because people
need a bit of that.
People are nostalgic for the things that they weren't alive for. That's an interesting one. I'm going to need to take some time to think about this.
I'm all for it. I'm looking forward to it.
While we're on TV, it has been announced the first 7 castings for the Sandman Netflix show.
Ooh la la.
And controversially,
You said that controversially.
that's right. The 7 casting is not for the 7 members of the Endless, which would have made more sense than. When I saw the post, it's like the first 7 members of the cast had been announced. I'm like, the Endless, got you. Mm-hmm. It's not, so not sure how I feel. Whatever. So the 7 we've got are Tom Sturridge is Dream, Lord of the Dreaming. They've all got little subtitles to explain the obvious.
Obviously, yeah.
You'll see the level of explaining the obvious in a second. Gwendolyn Christie is Lucifer, ruler of hell.
Okay, I'm into that.
I'm super into that. I mean,
that's cool casting.
That it's just good casting, and obviously, Neil Gaiman's original pitch was that David Bowie was Lucifer, and that's what we get in that first few appearances in the comic. But Bowie's dead, so you have to go in a different direction. But
it has that kind of slightly androgynous,
and I think that's
styles to it, and I think Gwendolyn Christie could really pull that off.
Definitely, and I think it's the right kind of choice to make because we've seen so many versions of Lucifer over the years, and
we've seen
both comic standard book and regular Lucifer,
but as you say, we've seen the pretty standard versions of either it's a big red dude with horns or it's a white guy in a suit.
And
to have some variation that isn't that is refreshing.
We got a little bit of variation in the latter seasons of Sabrina,
Truth. Yeah,
but
that's fair.
But with all due respect, I just think this is going to be better. Moving casually on from just laying down the law on how good this is going to be. I don't think this is the thing. I don't think I need the Sandman show. I just need like Gwendolyn Christie as Lucifer, and whatever you do around that, sure, cool, whatever.
Just watch it for that.
Vivian Achampong is Lucian, the librarian of the Dreaming.
Okay, cool.
Cool. We've got Charles Dance as Roderick Burgess, the charlatan and magician who, imprisons Dream, and again, just good casting, isn't it?
So that suggests they are looking at Volume 1.
However, Sanjeev Bhaskar is Cain, the first Predator.
Right.
Asim Chowdhury is Abel, the first victim.
Nice. Like Asim Chowdhury.
And here's where the Volume 1 thing gets interesting, because Boyd Holbrook is the Corinthian, an escaped nightmare. Which brings us into Volume 2 territory.
Yeah, so they're going to mush him up a bit. I guess they kind of did that with Umbrella Academy, right?
And Lock and Key as well. We've seen kind of shuffled in on itself.
That's truth, yeah.
So it could definitely work, and it's a good batch of casting for the first chunk.
Yeah. Do you know what this is going to? Any word about what this is going to come out on?
It's Netflix.
It's Netflix, good, because I've found one thing with the DC TV stuff is always quite hard to get hold of.
Yeah, and I think a lot of time we get hold of it when we've already been told that America hated it and it's been cancelled.
Yeah, so a lot of the Arrowverse stuff is hard to get. Swamp Thing was hard to get. Titans, as it turns out, is on Netflix.
And nobody's watching it, so
I watched it.
It's interesting because I really liked Constantine, and the fact that we got it on like Prime Video and we're told it's been cancelled, and we got Swamp Thing on Prime Video and it's been cancelled. I kind of welcome the idea that this is going to come out through Netflix and maybe get taken seriously and not be a we only care about the American audience and they hate it kind of production. I've seen a lot of the response be, this is really cool, and I'm looking forward to this, but what about death? And a lot of people seem very hung up on the casting of death. And I'm just going to go out on a limb and say people need to get over it.
Who's cast? Or is that unannounced as yet?
Unannounced. Those are the only ones we've got so far. So death is a mystery. Delirium, destruction, desire. are all still to play for. The most important, Hobgaddling, is
still yet to be snatched up.
Still yet to be decided. And
get your audition tape in, man.
I reckon I've got it in me to be, most of those characters.
You're destined to be Ted Cord.
You know what? I think I could do Ted Cord justice, and I have no previous acting experience, but I'm willing to say that could be my breakout role.
That's where you're at. Well, shall we then segue into talking about a movie that doesn't deserve to be taken seriously?
Of course, Will. And this was your choice, so I'm going to let you break it to the world as we debut our second Film Club episode. From
the year 1994. It has a striking 50 on Metacritic and a 6.1 on IMDb. It's Alec Baldwin's The Shadow.
How would you like to explain the plot of The Shadow, and then we'll
okay. Yeah.
I love how uncertain about that you were.
So, a Mongolian warlord played by Sir Alec Baldwin, unofficially knighted, meets a holy man who teaches him how to do hypnotism and be a good person. He then journeys back to his hometown of New York, where he resumes his role as the Shadow, where he fights crime and gangsters until this was a point of confusion for me, but we'll come back to this. But until a chap turns up from Mongolia who idolized the Shadow's previous life and decides that he's going to conquer the world in Genghis Khan fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And then him and the Shadow, do fights until credits roll.
Yeah, I mean, not incorrect, I guess.
I'm assuming that's kind of the pitch they gave when they, sold it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they probably had a little bit more hey, whoa, what about this? But
I mean, they didn't put it in the film, but
yeah, I feel like this is a film that it's. Oh man, I don't know what to say right here. This is like a gap in my mind. This is a film that should be pretty good.
Yeah, it's got a lot of the building blocks of what could have been a good film. I get the impression this had some money behind it. I didn't actually look any of this up, but at least some faith from the producing studios.
See, the problem is, okay, this definitely had some money thrown at it, but I feel like they threw all of that money in one direction. Not the band. Sorry, had to clear that up for some reason. That mattered.
Weird soundtrack.
I mean, the soundtrack is weird. That's another.
Yeah,
that's another question. So, okay, the budget estimated was 25 million.
Wowzers.
They made back worldwide gross 48 million.
I mean, nearly doubled your money.
Yeah, in a weird way. And I feel like all the money, and stop me if you disagree by all means, I feel like all the money went on getting the cast and literally nothing else. And it's a cast that, okay, so the main characters, we've got Alec Baldwin as the Shadow, Lamont Cranston. We've got John Lone as Khan. What's his first name, man? What's his first name? Shuyan?
I think, yeah. After a bit, they just start calling him Khan, and it's easy to
forget
what his first name is.
I think he's Shuwan Khan.
Yeah.
And then you've got Penelope Ann Miller as Margot Lane. And that's your main cast. Those are your three go-tos. You got your hero, your villain, and your telepathic, somewhat femme fatale love interest with a whole lot of question marks about what's going on. But then you get the kind of extended cast, which is Ian McKellen and Tim Curry and Peter Boyle, and characters that don't matter are known actors.
Yeah.
What the hell is that? It's like Carl, right? Carl from The Breakfast Club is just a gangster who gets punched a lot and goes mad with a Tommy gun in one of the first scenes. There is a character who isn't named, I don't think, in the film, called Li Peng, who's played by James Hong, who again gets killed in one of the first scenes. Yeah. Why get like known actors? The downstairs neighbor from Friends, Mr. Heckles, is a cab driver who blows himself up and is in one scene. Why is every character like a recognizable star? Well, no, not star, a recognizable actor from the 90s. Even if they don't need to be, you could get some extras, but even the extras are like, no, there'll be a high profile nobody.
The best caliber of nobody. Yeah, I mean it is the cast they've got is sort of insane. I wonder if, like, when this was released in 1994, I imagine this has come right off the coattails of Tim Burton's Batman.
Yeah, this is definitely that phase where every studio tried to have their Batman, and we saw this, we saw The Crow, we saw The Phantom. A lot of those. I think it's very in.
Compounded with it's probably somewhere else the budget went, is it got Jerry Goldsmith in to do the score, who is obviously a highly recognizable sort of film composer, but he owes a lot to Danny Elfman for this score, because
this
it's
score
just Batman.
Sounds like Batman.
Yeah.
There are particular moments where it's one step away from going into the exact Batman Tim Burton's theme.
Yeah.
And it's like someone's there slapping him, going like, no, not that.
Having said that, the fact that it does sound like Batman and that it's written by Jerry Goldsmith somehow gives the film a slight addition, like legitimacy as well.
I'm willing to allow that. It's interesting because it's got an air of legitimacy that it's like the film is trying to stop. Mm-hmm. It's like the sound is so the score is good, the soundtrack is bizarre, but then the casting is pretty incredible, and it's then like, I don't know, it's like someone made a deal with the devil, and that deal was, you'll have amazing casts and terrible films. It's like that's the balance that was struck, because it's, I don't know, I haven't seen this for about 20 years.
No, me neither.
Which also begs a question, because I decided to do some research here, because I remember my mum talking about this film a lot when I was younger. So I called her today and I'm like, hey, so why did you like The Shadow so much when I was younger? And her honest response was, I don't think I've ever seen The Shadow. Which then led me into this like black hole of, then how did I see The Shadow? And why did you talk about it if you'd never seen The Shadow? And I can't figure it out, man. It's like, I've definitely seen this, and seeing it again, some of it came screaming back to me, and other bits did not.
There were specific bits. The knife with a face.
Yeah.
It was pretty memorable.
Purda? Purda?
I think so. But we'll get to some of those bits. So, having said that it steals a lot, I say steals, that's maybe a bit harsh, borrows from Tim Burton's Batman.
Borrows forever and doesn't return.
I think there are some other like connective tissues to lots of other things. So as part of the story, our main man, the Shadow, Lamont Cranston, begins as a Mongolian like war chief. /
opium dealer? Like opium trader. Dealer. He's doing something with opium.
Seems pretty successful at it. Never really bothers to tell you how American Lamont Cranston becomes said Mongolian.
See, this is something I'd made a note of, because they acknowledge that 7 years pass from him starting his training to become the Shadow and returning to America, but then his uncle, Police Commissioner Wainwright, to his relatives apparently, says to him that hey, well, what about when you went missing for 7 years after the war? And it's like, whoa, what war got an American man into China? And if you're saying he went missing for 7 years, that's the training. So are you saying you were okay with him being like a Mongolian warlord opium farmer, and the problem was that he then didn't text you or didn't drop any hints as to what he did for the 7 years after the drug trade?
Let's touch on that training as well. So we're treated to just a title page explaining that his training has happened. It's taken place, and now he's not a merciless warlord. He's now like a vigilante for good. For some reason. And it's never really, again, sort of gotten into for any purpose. I almost feel like if you're going to give it that little service, just take that bit out of his backstory. Just drop him back into America and don't worry about it. Yeah. Anywho. It's interesting as well, because at the end of that title card, it says, he's going back to the, I can't remember the phrasing, but, a cesspit of humanity, the absolute worst place on earth. Mos Eisley. and as it ticks up and it's like the ... Marta turns to me and goes, it's New York City then. And then the next shot is New York City. And it's like, yeah, why is it always New York? Can it ever be like he's dealing with the problems in Detroit or Chicago or... Well, Detroit's got RoboCop, so no need to... That's true. Sorry, my bad. Yeah, no need to double down there. Chicago got Michael Jordan, so he can defend them. True. Yeah, he just smashes his problems with basketballs. Yeah. But it's just that question of it's always New York City. And I know a lot of comic book companies were based in New York, and that's the real reason that you write what you know, and everyone assumed that everybody lived in New York. But come on, man, they've already got the Fantastic Four and the Phantom, and I think they've just got that self-fulfilling prophecy that as long as you make more media selling New York as this playground of Hollywood and ideas, then the more it just becomes that, and everything just ends up. And Ghostbusters are there, Rocky's there. Right, whoa! Rocky is in Philadelphia. You watch your mouth. Philadelphia. You're absolutely right. Yeah, I'm gonna have to sit in the corner for 12 minutes. I have to edit that bit out, so people don't think you're a complete fool. Just take that out for me. I'm not a huge fan of Rocky, to be honest. So I don't really care. But this is the thing. A lot of media is set in New York, and I would love it to be like, oh man, where are you going to go back and protect? Delaware, North Carolina. It's like, I'm not picky about the city. They can have a full state to defend. If obviously, I accept that there's clearly more crime in New York because there's more superheroes. So if they have to spread it out, maybe the Shadow has to travel to protect North Carolina. I don't know, but I'm not a details guy. But well, I mean, neither are the filmmakers, so it doesn't really seem to be a problem. But within that, so he goes for some sort of mystical Eastern training. And I thought this is very reminiscent of Batman Begins. And also very reminiscent of that bit in The Phantom where he gets trained on a mysterious island to be the Phantom. Correct. And I find this seems to be a common theme with our kind of pulp heroes, is that they are trained in some sort of often Eastern mystical art. Let's also credit, though, that Batman being trained as a ninja in the middle of some mysterious land is lifted from The Question, which was obviously acquired by DC, but is also a much more pulp character. Who came first? So the Shadow came before Batman. I don't know if Batman... Right, as far as I'm aware, the Batman's a ninja thing is
I think was something that was added in later on. So I think the question had that training before Batman.
It sounds like Frank Miller would do that.
Yeah, I feel like there are a lot of DC 80s people who would like just tear stuff from a different character and chuck that into Batman or Daredevil or...
Yeah.
So I'm basically saying I think Batman got an update via pulp characters because it wasn't enough that he was already the world's greatest detective. He also had to be a ninja.
He also had to be the world's greatest ninja detective. I've got some other connective tissue here I think is very interesting. So Lamont Cranston is the Shadow's real name, but that's just like Bryan Cranston, so Breaking Bad.
Of course, Power Rangers.
The love interest, Margot Lane. Well, that's the surname of Lois Lane. It's also the first name of Margot Kidder, who played Lois Lane, so Superman.
Ah. By coincidence or by design?
I think entirely by design.
To make people a little bit more okay with it.
Yeah. I did like, I mean, you've mentioned as part of the cast, our good friend Peter Boyce, famous for Everybody Loves Raymond, and my personal favourite, Young Frankenstein.
Completely fair.
But I also very much enjoyed, there's a kind of security guard called, he gets credited as Nelson, played by Ethan Phillips, who is Neelix.
Yeah. One of my notes here is just, why is Neelix a security guard?
Why does Neelix shoot himself in the head?
I mean, we've not even got into Khan yet, have we?
No. So, Khan entered with great confusion for me because it begins with them uncovering what appears to be Genghis Khan's like sarcophagus.
Yes, which we all know is the traditional way that Genghis Khan was buried, obviously.
In a huge metal tube.
Solid silver, apparently.
This, through kind of magical works, pops open and our main antagonist steps out, kills Neelix.
As you do.
And my assumption there was, so this is Genghis Khan then?
Yeah, and it almost feels surreal when then someone who can read Latin, obviously.
Yeah.
But why would it be Latin if it's Genghis Khan's sarcophagus? Surely it would be, Mongolian Mandarin or whatever language would have been most appropriate for Genghis Khan. Whatever Genghis Khan wanted, let's be honest. So maybe he did want Latin, never mind. But yeah, so
just emojis.
Yeah, the museum curator pops up and reads that it's the coffin of not Genghis Khan. He uses his real name, which I didn't make a note of. Or allegedly his real name. Let's be honest, not a lot of fact checking going on here in this film, is there?
Gregory Khanston.
So Genghis Khan's coffin pops open and we get Shuwan Khan. And Temujin is the real name of Genghis Khan. Sorry, I needed to know. And someone should know. It's kind of feels like, were you originally gonna cast immortal Genghis Khan as the villain and then thought, actually, wait a minute, that's a bit much. It should be the last descendant of Genghis Khan, Shuwan Khan, who we all know and love as a historical figure. And I got into a conversation following this reveal of Genghis Khan traveled the world, right? He got about. Are we really saying there's only one descendant of Genghis Khan?
According to, and it might just be hyperbole, but yeah, apparently he had like thousands of kids. Yeah,
so what, did Shuwan Khan just trek around just like doing away with all the other last descendants of Genghis Khan?
Now, I might have missed this. Does it explain that in the film, or have you just got that from your own personal research? Because I didn't get that he's a descendant.
No, he says that he is the last descendant of Genghis Khan.
I kind of got that he was like a big admirer of the Shadow in his previous life.
For some reason, whatever that means.
But I mean, for the first few scenes that this guy's in, I'm kind of thinking, okay, so this is Genghis Khan somehow like preserved in this sarcophagus and now come to our modern world. I say modern, it's like in the 30s or whatever. Yeah. But has now come to this world to take over, to continue his expansion. So while I'm watching this, there's a bit where he's in a taxi, and the taxi driver's kind of writing down where he's going to, and he's like, "You're recording my destination." And the guy's like, "Well, taxi rules," and he kind of rolls his eyes and gets out. And I'm there thinking, fair enough, Genghis Khan probably doesn't understand how taxis work. And then hypnotizes the driver and says, "You need fuel now," and drives his taxi straight into a huge fuel tank and blows everything up, which to be fair was a great scene when just before the guy says, "It's my lucky day," and then explodes.
It's so dumb. It just...
During all of that, I'm thinking, how does he not understand taxis but understands that taxis need fuel?
Yeah, and it's interesting because apparently Shawan Khan was a character in The Shadow back in the day. So apparently he's an established entity, but the character is written as if the character's written as if at some point they decide he isn't Genghis Khan, but that was the original intention. Because why would he not know about taxis if he's just a modern day man who happens to think he's Genghis Khan? I don't know.
Maybe it's a joke about American taxis. I don't get. But it left me confused for a while. Once they explained who he was, I thought, okay, it explains why he understands what fuel is.
Explained is a loose kind of.
Well, yeah.
So, running us along the side that he's come back from. Mm-hmm. Well, no, running alongside the fact that Lamont Cranston has returned to New York City to be the Shadow, and Shawan Khan has basically pursued him as just a huge fan who you can ship in a crate. That's fine.
Yeah.
We've got Margot Lane, who is a little bit telepathic, and her father Reinhardt Lane, Ian McKellen, who is building
McKellen.
Sorry, yeah, much actual sir here, not like Alec Baldwin.
Yeah, genuine.
Who is building a implosive device, which Margot will go on to describe as harmless energy research, some kind of implosive device.
Yeah, they essentially create the nuke, 10 years too early.
Yes, they do. And his assistant, Farley Claymore, is Tim Curry, who's doing something with spheres. I don't.
Now, Tim Curry isn't in the film a lot. What he is in it
when he is,
is pure gold. What I was most impressed by is that Tim Curry gets the "and" in the opening credits. Of all of the other cast in that film, it's Tim Curry who gets the "and" Tim Curry.
Yeah, as if he's the big name and everybody else is some sucker.
Yeah.
But now, obviously, this is IMDb trivia, so I don't know if it's true or not, but apparently Tim Curry took this role purely for the opportunity to work with Ian McKellen.
That seems fair.
But I think you can flip those names. I think it can easily be Ian McKellen took this role to work with Tim Curry. And I think both make as much sense to me in this world.
The star of Home Alone 2 and Red and Conquer Red Alert. Did I say Red and Conquer? Command and Conquer Red Alert.
See, that's interesting because I described it last night as, come on, it's the star of Apt's Pupil and the star of that film where he's got a monkey that talks with sign language.
Oh, I can't remember.
Look, is that Congo? I think it might be Congo. And
that rings a bell.
They're trying to steal diamonds from angry prehistoric monkeys. And I think you can amp up how dumb you make them both sound in films quite easily. And I respect that. But neither of them need to be in this film. I can't stress that enough. They're here purely for the ride at this point, right?
Yeah. I mean, they have so little screen time. I mean, McKellen spends most of it having been hypnotized.
And not really acting.
No, he's barely saying a word, just kind of doddering around going like, oh, where am I? And you're like, oh, okay, here's your paycheck, Ian.
For some reason, it is casually important that he is colorblind.
Yeah.
Or is he colourblind, or does he just not know what red and green are?
Is it just like an eccentricity? I don't really know. Yeah, like that's never quite
very unclear. And a part of me was like, well, it's the 1930s. Maybe they didn't know as much about being colourblind. And
if it's 1930s, it would have all been in black and white. So
true, it wouldn't have mattered to him.
No.
but equally, Tim Curry starts the film as a kind of slightly creepy lab assistant type, very well dressed for a lab assistant, I must say, and then descends very quickly into like known quantity madman. And he's like, even says to Khan, like, I'm the only one smart enough to willingly team up with you. And it's like, what? Like you hear that this guy's after destroying America and go, best get in on that. Don't want to be the idiot who gets blown up.
Yeah, just don't want to be left out.
And don't get me wrong, that leads me to it. If we're going in chronological order, I can save this for later, but Tim Curry is part of my favourite scene in this.
Is it like when Tim Curry is alone in some sort of ballroom shooting machine gun wildly into the air?
That is good.
The most incredible like camera angle, sort of 90 degrees above his head, watching these like beads of sweat come down as he monologues some insane line of dialogue. It's just, I mean, nobody else would throw themselves so like full-heartedly into such a stupid scene, and I can't help but love him for it.
That leads into him being thrown through a window. No, he throws himself through a window like 30 feet down and then still manages to go through a glass coffee table. And it's very unclear if he's going to walk away from that or not. I
found that interesting, that decision quite interesting as well, because like I figured the Shadow would be more deadly, right? He's got this pair of pistols that he uses a handful of times, but normally he's just kind of sparking people out.
Yeah.
So
for a man with two guns, he punches a lot.
So I was thinking, okay, they've kind of taken a no killing aspect with the Shadow,
but very much not.
But then he just says like, I mean, jump out that window.
Yeah. And,
and he goes, okay, I'll jump out that window.
It's such a like conflicts of interest, and incidentally, no, that isn't my favorite Tim Curry's.
Wow, is it in the water like sphere? What is that sphere for either? Why?
I can't figure it out. I was hoping you would have like gleaned something I couldn't.
Just a metal sphere made for just filling up with water.
It's not that. There is a bit very close to the end where Ian McKellen is like hypnotized putting together this bomb in this giant sphere that apparently that's the science that Tim Curry specializes in, is metal spheres. And he's just like wandering around in the background like a maniac going, bet you didn't count on me being friends with a conqueror, did you? The whole scene is like, whoa, Tim Curry has gone from a little bit creepy to like proper unhinged lunatic.
Yeah.
And all it took was like, fancy blowing up New York? It's like, cracking, yeah. I've been hoping to properly lose my mind, and this sounds right up my alley.
It is excellent. What did you think overall, like, about the sort of look and the VFX on display?
Okay, so it goes from cringeworthy 90s at the best of times, with like the knife with the face that moves on its own and drags him around a room in a fight scene, which is like awkwardly 90s, to the final kind of showdown in the Hall of Mirrors, which we all have in our hotels. I
that and the trick floor. Do you know when he first gets there?
Yeah,
it's kind of got that sort of Flash Gordon like tilting floor, and I was thinking, like, who's building a hotel and thinking, you know what this needs? Death traps.
You know what would really finish this off is if we could do this right next to the Hall of Mirrors. Imagine how off balance you'd be. Like, and it's like, wait, you're this super powered mind controlling entity who's the last descendant of Genghis Khan for some reason, and you're like gimmick floor, funhouse attraction. That's what I need to defeat my enemy, who I've also tried to recruit because I think he's evil for reasons.
Yeah. for reasons that within the context of the film do make sense. Like he was a warlord, but to the viewer, don't really make.
If you miss the first 10 minutes of this film, you have no reason to understand why Khan is like, you and me, bro, villains, right? Am I right? Except I'm not a villain because this is what Genghis Khan wanted. His descendants to finish the job. And at no point do they acknowledge that he's trying to finish the job for Genghis Khan, but Genghis Khan's no longer like ruling half the world. Mm-hmm. So he doesn't need to just take over the bits that old Genghis Khan missed. He needs to take over the world.
Yeah. It's not like 50% is still under the sort of Khan.
Yeah, it's not like he's already got, half the planet like on the books already and it's the finishing touches. But he seems to think that's the case.
We also don't really get beyond the stickler of just, I'm going to set this bomb off in New York. And then?
And it's like, also, he's in New York.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to use this. It's it both implodes and explodes. It's made from mystical Chinese metal.
To be fair, the hypnotism powers are basically whatever you need them to be at any given point in the story. Like they are far-reaching powers. There's a bit where they're fighting and I think the shadow is a shadow at that particular moment. And two crossbows kind of go into the wall and pin his shadow.
And he takes off his coat as if that's fine.
And he like steps out from the wall, but that wasn't described as what his power was. He doesn't become a shadow.
He appears invisible by confusing you, essentially.
And the only thing he can't hide is his shadow. So they just seem to recreate his powers every other scene.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because, okay, let's just hammer this home for anyone not playing along at home. The shadow can confuse you, which essentially allows him to disappear.
Yeah.
Margot has telepathy, but only with Alec Baldwin and her cousin, apparently.
A creepy cousin.
Who will not appear in this film.
No. But was played by Tom Cruise.
This is known that she hears voices by the police commissioner, but not her own father. Khan can also do the whole confusion stuff, but very much uses it as a power of suggestion thing rather than to blend into the shadows.
Yeah.
Even though he had the exact same training as the shadow, so there should be scenes in this film where two invisible men fight.
I'd like to see that or not see that.
I stand by it. I can actually hook you up with a you don't need this, but I can hook you up with an independent wrestling match where two invisible men fight and the crowd reacts as if it's happening. As does the referee.
But you're right. I don't need it. Okay, I'm going to roll out some positives.
All right, I look forward to. Oh, can I throw one like not negative but not positive, just legit question mark while I've mentioned the police?
Hit me.
There is a point where he turns to a waiter and says, "More chives, please."
He does. Do you know what this food needs? A fucking shit ton of chives.
Who the fuck is this man? Who is this? I've eaten a lot of food. I'm going to put that down as like an accomplishment. Tick, lot of food. I have never gone, can I get some more chives in this?
I think I need a bucket of parsley to go with this, please. Yeah, it's an insane thing to request. And you think such an easy thing to script as well. He needs more of something. I mean,
pepper.
Salt,
the thing
water,
he needs is
wine.
Pepper, salt, water, parmesan, Christ, I don't care.
There are so many things it could
chives.
be, but chives. Yeah, it's no, you're right. It's an incredible bit of script.
Or not.
Okay, let's roll out some of these here positives.
Okay.
There are a couple of examples of painted backgrounds. I'm a sucker for a painted background.
In one of the first scene in New York where he's beating up Carl from the Breakfast Club, we see an amazing shot of painted on New York. And
there's a bit on the bridge.
Yeah.
and there's a bit where they look down the bridge and they are just looking at a painted wall, and it's really, really obvious that it's a painted wall.
Yeah.
Now, that wasn't a great one, I admit, but there's a shot, I think, just as they're setting up that, of the bridge and of New York, like from one side of the river to the other.
Mm.
And it's a really like good painted background. And
yeah,
I think, I don't know in 1994, like whether that's still something you chose to do or whether that was still kind of the best option for making backgrounds you didn't want to just go and shoot. But it makes it feel like a film set in the 30s. Like it gives its time period a certain authenticity by these painted backgrounds. Like I say, whether it was out of choice or kind of necessity, I think it worked.
It's an interesting one. I agree. I couldn't decide if that was like still the way you went for things. If you needed New York, it was easier to paint it than it was to like
New York at night, like it was in the 30s. Like, I guess it's probably too early to be easily penciling out buildings and stuff, but
yeah, it's interesting because I do wonder if it was like an active choice to make it look more like a 1930s film, but that seems ridiculous.
It seems ridiculous they'd put the thought into that and not, you know, things like plot.
Well, yeah. And I do, on a similar line, just kind of wonder that the house he lives in, which is unbelievable as a kind of mid-city mansion.
Yeah,
is what I'm going to call it. And I couldn't decide if that was painted or if it was like a real building. It looked really, too flat.
Yeah.
But I couldn't figure that one out no matter how many times they showed it.
No, how many times I rewinded. What else have I got which is a positive? I mean, as we said, the Curry McKellen scenes are just gold.
They don't need to be. And I've got one for you. There is a point where there is a dream sequence of Alec Baldwin thinks he hears Margot shout from the other room and runs through, and then realizes there's a hole in his face and starts peeling his face off, and then the face is a mask and he's been Khan all along. And just the legitimate fear of watching him put his hand in his face was really creepy and really well done. For a like, you know, basic bit of plastic face practical effects.
Yeah,
actually quite a good scene.
Yeah, I think they pulled
the
that
start
one off.
at least.
Absolutely.
The bit where he explains it to Margot and she talks about being naked on a beach is, well, it's just fucking surreal, isn't it? Actually,
that is fucking bizarre. To continue my positive path, the Shadow Sanctum.
That was a positive. Not Margot on the beach. That's just bizarre.
That was horribly negative. But the Shadow Sanctum is a pretty cool design. His little like hexagonal underground little base.
Yeah, just alcoves with various bits of stuff.
I think that was pretty cool.
Pistol hidden in a secret drawer in the wall.
Yeah.
Because the thing with that was like, so if someone corners you in this lair, are the walls lined with hidden drawers full of guns? Or is it always that one drawer and you've like... you know, if you're getting cornered, you have to find a way to steer yourself towards that.
Yeah,
it was just an immediate thought of like, is that like if this was a real lair, you'd like have to put hidden guns everywhere,
just in case.
Because what if you get cornered in your quite small central area?
And how often do you have to sort of take them out and maintain all the guns? Because you don't want to step on it and just be like all rusted up.
True, or like no bullets, like, shucks, I used this one last time.
You'd need a good regimen. But despite that, the design was cool. I was into that.
Yes, yeah.
There is this whole thing of him being invisible. And I think they deal with the action in quite a decent way, which is kind of he just flashes into view just as he's kind of connecting with people.
Which I guess I would notice if I was getting punched. I think I would have the wherewithal to go, wait a minute. So yeah, that it makes sense, and it looks as one of the special effects that would be easiest to kind of screw up. I think they do pull it off.
Yeah, and I think just from a viewing perspective as well, I think I've seen films before where people are pretending to get hit by something that isn't there.
Yeah, so to actually have Alec Baldwin punching you is probably... Well, that's a question, actually. Is Alec Baldwin the Shadow?
Like stunt guy?
Because, yeah, he puts his hat on, and then he puts that bandana over his mouth but not nose, which in 2020, with all the mask wearing, did annoy me.
Mm-hmm.
But in doing so, his forehead, eyes, and nose become the face of another man.
Yeah. I think in the originals that's supposed to be like prosthetic to make him...
Yeah.
He's thought about this even more than Batman.
Like, you know, like the Question doesn't have a face because he has that weird blank mask. And I assumed that's what we were going for, but it comes from nowhere. As soon as the hat goes on, he's a different guy.
I think towards the end it suggests he's doing that, like...
voluntarily.
Hypnotically, because he sort of loses it at one point.
And we get badass Alec Baldwin at the end where he's lost the hat, the mask is gone, he's all covered in water for some reason, and he's got his like jacket open, and he's just, you know, Alec Baldwin's gonna kill you, man. That's the vibe, is like, Alec's here and this is over. This is, I don't know, this is Luke versus the Emperor. This is the showdown. I mean, far less significant, obviously, in many ways, but this is the best Alec Baldwin has ever looked.
Yeah, without a doubt. There's an excellent moment where Khan and the Shadow shoot each other.
Yeah.
And the bullets meet in midair.
Yes, they do. And
the best bit about it is how surprised they both look.
Yeah, it would be easy. Like, okay, a good example is, you know, in Red, where Malkovich shoots the rocket in midair and it explodes and he's super cool. That's what I expected. The fact that both of them like, holy fucking shit, did you see that? We just, wow, we are really good at this.
That's what really made that scene for me, was that just a mutual complete shock.
Yeah, it feels like at that point they should just be like, no, right, we've seen enough. Let's just shake hands and walk away from this. You blow up New York, whatever you need to do. We are evenly matched, good sir. I don't know. It's got that weird vibe to it. So in spite of that insane little bit of shooting, it's not my favorite weapons based scene, I think.
Go on.
So after building a bomb into a sphere, said sphere manages to roll away from Margot and Reinhardt as they try to disarm it. And their first effort increases the timer, because of course it does.
Yeah.
And then it rolls away from them into an elevator shaft. And he's kind of suspended on the like grill of the elevator doors, and they have to, like, I don't know, tightrope walk across it almost to disarm it, which is just incredibly dumb, isn't it? Like, it's not enough that it's a atomic bomb they've built from ancient metal and it's going to wipe out as much of North America as possible.
And of course, in the end, actually deactivating it is just one wire.
But we get that nice callback to, oh, is it red? Is it green? He just doesn't know.
I feel that entire character trait is pulled in for that one punchline, which is not worth having.
It's a joke that doesn't pay off. It's not funny. Payoff. It's and you know what? I do wonder, did they have like a, you know, deleted scenes that all backed it up? Was that like was this whole subplot with red and green, and like Khan's getting increasingly frustrated with Ian McKellen because it's like, no man, that's clearly red. I don't know. It just begs that question. Was there a bunch of stuff with Tim Curry getting annoyed, and was that like a whole other film we could have had where it's just disagreements about color schemes? Or
yeah, there are several other colors he gets confused, but they were for the sequels. There's a scene where Khan goes to the top of the Empire State Building.
Oh, I know exactly where this is going. Go on.
And a sailor insults him. Yeah. That sailor, played by Patrick Fischler, who I have most recently seen in Happy.
for some reason, again, this is all quite recognizable actors in meaningless roles.
Yeah, but he, due to the insult, Khan makes him climb the railing to the Empire State and throw himself off.
Yeah.
All well and good. The best bit is how it turns into the next scene, which shows him as just a small black dot falling from the Empire State Building and hitting a ledge about 2/3 of the way down. The camera just pans down to
Alec Baldwin and Penelope Ann Miller.
Yeah, just trotting through the streets of New York, completely oblivious. And I thought, that's actually pretty funny.
Oh man, that's not even the best part. The best part is that as we see him falling, the next line from Alec Baldwin is, "It's all falling into place."
I mean, how have they gone from forgetting why he's a warlord to writing just fucking pure gold scripts like that?
That's the thing. It's like there are these weird moments where it's like, this is good. And then there's moments where it's like, this is garbage.
Yeah, complete garbage.
And there's no tone throughout the entire film. I don't know. It's like, it's kind of camp and funny at times, but then it's kind of, no, man, this is serious. And then, all right, the ending where Khan gets stabbed in the head with a shard of glass.
After it goes all Neo Matrix.
Yeah. And all the glass in the Hall of Mirrors explode. Only for him to be in an asylum where he's been essentially lobotomized. To not have, and no longer has his power because part of his frontal lobe's been removed. Damn, that's dark.
It almost feels like it'd be better just killing him.
Yeah, it's like, whoa. I thought he was just dead, and now you're telling me he's, locked up in an institution somewhere in a straitjacket being treated like he's a maniac. He is the descendant of Genghis Khan. He
did have psychic powers.
It's like, wow, this was like a not that dark film with quite a dark conclusion suddenly. What the hell is that?
On the strength of the people involved, the score, the budget, I can imagine they expected a sequel.
I would say yes.
Which, it didn't materialize.
You know what? It's optimistic, but I guess you have to look at it as 94. We're looking at what? There's going to be a third Batman film the year later, and obviously The Crow came out. Was The Crow 94 as well? Obviously that got 2-3 sequels, a TV show, all kinds of crap. And I get.
I mean, to be fair, the first Crow is much better than this.
Yeah, and you know why that is? Because they know what the tone is, and they had a script and a plot that kind of made sense, and it's ridiculous that we can say that the plot of The Crow makes more sense when a man is dead for an entire year and then comes back and no one's moved into his apartment.
Property prices be tough, man.
But yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
It's weird. It's a weird one. So while I was watching this film, Catherine came in, and what she wanted to know when she was seeing the treatment of Margot Robbie Lane was, does this film pass the Bechdel test? Now, my understanding of the Bechdel test is that the film has a scene where two women are talking and the subject is not about a man.
See, for that to happen, Will, there would have to be a second woman.
Exactly that. It fails on the basic premise that there is a single female character, not only like in a speaking part,
but at all.
Other than the women who were listed as concubine in the
opening scene,
in the credits list, I don't think there are any other women in it. It's a wild realization when you think this.
Yeah, and again, it does put us with a similar thing where, God, I can't believe this is the example I'm about to give, but Batman, obviously 5 years earlier, basically only has the one woman in Vicky Vale, and Batman Returns is largely, you know, Michelle Pfeiffer centric. There isn't really anyone else. But then the Phantom at least has 2 women.
It does, and a dog and a horse. So
True.
It's covering all of the gender bases, as we know them to be.
But I do find it quite strange that, Margot is the only, like, speaking female role in the entire film. And when you look at the cast list, it is almost entirely guys.
It's a real sausage fest.
It's not great in that sense.
It's far from it. No, I think that's a real failing.
And it is a shame, because I feel like, as we've mentioned, it is a loaded cast. There is no hesitation to get more people involved, and I feel like it would have benefited from more people and definitely more female representation would have done this some good. I don't think it would have fixed anything.
Oh, far from it.
But it might have helped. I don't know. It's impossible to say. I think it's hard to say what The Shadow needed to improve as a film.
Yeah, I mean, I just think the plot is so rubbish. It's so underexplained that I think even just fixing that bit, if they'd come with a much more concise plot, there's a lot of the bits in it, like some of the crappy CGI and stuff, I can forgive.
It was the 90s, you know, we have to forgive.
Yeah, for being a 1994 film with a middle budget. So, but it just, none of it really makes a great deal of sense. Or, like, the Shadow is a reformed character, but we don't know why, and we don't know, like, what struggles he's gone through to get there, or there's no reason to, like, there's a bit where he has the bad dream and then says, like, you'll never know what it's like to never be able to forgive yourselves for some things you've done. You know, well, I don't know how you've got here from.
Yeah, we see he acknowledges that he's had this dark past and he's lived multiple past lives, and there's that scene where Margot's like, you know, I'm not afraid of you, and he's like, yeah, but I am. And I just there's this whole dark past to the Shadow that we're not really told anything about, other than that it is there.
Maybe that was going to be sequel fare.
An interesting thing I dug up, also IMDb, so could be untrue, is apparently Sam Raimi tried to get the rights to make a Shadow film and was denied those rights. And is it called
Darkman?
Yes, right.
When did that come out? Because that might be a direct response to not getting the rights for the Shadow.
Let's find out when Darkman was. Let's Google some stuff. Ooh, 1990 was Darkman apparently. So no, that could make sense if he tried to get the rights to. Yeah, it would have been. The Shadow was denied. Then he made Darkman angrily.
And somebody else got the Shadow rights. I mean, we're talking about him like a reformed character, but he does use his, like, mind reading powers for personal gain almost immediately. When he first sees Margot, he orders her exactly what she's thinking about ordering.
Yeah, and he does obviously manipulate the police chief commissioner to forget all about the Shadow, and
which has brought me on to another point I'd completely forgotten about. Every time he saves a life, he, like, brings them into his employ as an agent of the Shadow.
Oh God, yeah, he hooks them up with a massive ruby magical signet ring type.
A bloody huge signet ring. And you think, how has nobody noticed that?
Yeah, and it's like, it's anyone, isn't it? It's from taxi drivers through to scientists,
police, the whole works. But if you turn up one day with a bloody great red signet ring, I'm going to say, what's that bloody great red signet ring? And nobody ever questions it.
Because we have a scene where Dr. Roy Tam, who gets saved in the first scene in New York, is sat with his wife when all Lamont Cranston comes a knocking. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to ask the question, Will, if you came home one day with a giant ruby signet ring, would Catherine question her?
I think she would understand that I've been corralled into the employ of a street vigilante. I think she'd just take that as read.
Yeah, okay, yeah, fair. And
it's either the Shadow or it's the Phantom. One of them's giving me a ring.
Everyone's got gimmick rings these days. And
yeah.
Does this also suggest, because you don't know how many lives you're going to save if you're out being a vigilante, of course. Mm-hmm. So does he just have a pocket full of signet rings?
Like dog treats, just...
Yeah, his hand...
Always have some in your pocket, just in case.
Is that something you do? But yeah, it's got that implication that he must just be loaded up with rings. Also, having to take a taxi everywhere because you've dragged a poor taxi driver into your employment.
And there's one scene that reminds you that he's still like a working cabbie.
Yes, he gets called upon while he's got like a rich couple in the back seat and he's driving like a lunatic stunt driver.
Just tells him to get out. And then you think, well, I mean, I hope the Shadow's paying him for his time.
Yeah, that's true. It's like, is that it? He saves your life and you have to give him rides forever? Because that seems like a pretty raw deal to me. I don't know.
That seems like it sucks, yeah.
Although that is also the deal we have, so...
Well, you did save my life that one time. There was, alongside those same lines, though, with his, like, empire of helpers, there's a bit where somebody posts something through an address's letterbox.
Oh, God, yeah.
And that then goes on a...
Like, hydraulic tube system.
Mile-long sort of pipe system. Now... What happens if it gets stuck? Because it goes out of buildings, it goes like across streets.
You just got to wait for the next one to come along
and to push it through.
I don't know. And what makes it worse is the man who ultimately receives that message then FaceTimes the Phantom. No, he doesn't. He FaceTimes the Shadow because the Phantom's in a different film.
Well, he tries to FaceTime the Phantom. He's busy, so gets hold of the Shadow.
But... yeah, he just gets him up on this little viewing portal, and it's like, whoa, you've got like video call technology. Why did anyone need to send you a note? What is that, man? So the technology is inconsistent, to say the least.
Yeah, far from it.
Which I think is a pretty good summation of the Shadow, inconsistent, to say the least. There's a lot to like, but it's well hidden.
Yeah. I think that's it. I think there's a great cast. I mean, I say great, despite that being 98% men. I think there are the occasional kind of little VFX things I enjoyed.
Yeah, there's definitely things I enjoyed. In the effects, I love how close to being Batman the score is. And there's bits of the aesthetic. Like I said, I think there's no two ways about it. Alec Baldwin, when he's all ready to fight at the end, he is one sexy man.
Right, it's a good time for Alec.
It might be the best time for Alec. I'm not sure he ever looks this good again.
No, maybe it's just by contrast to his sort of hideous secret face.
Yes, maybe that's the thing. Maybe it's like if he's gonna, it's either if he's gonna look hideous sometimes, let's make him super cool and sexy the other times, or it's damn, he's real cool and sexy. If he's gonna be a vigilante, we should ugly him up a bit.
Overall, though, I think I agree with the IMDb and Metacritic of about like half. It's a 5 out of 10.
Halfway to great.
Yeah, it's not without merit. But it's pretty crud. I think there are simple things that we have suggested in this podcast which would make huge improvements. Mm-hmm.
And it's a shame.
Tim Curry.
More, oh God, yeah, just 100% Tim Curry. I think that's what the world, like most things, including Tim Curry, it would ultimately benefit from less of everything else and more of Tim Curry. I don't think it's beyond the realms to believe that we will get a Shadow reboot at some point in the not so distant future.
Yeah, I could see that.
And I would still get Alec Baldwin in for it if he's available.
Would you do it like the Zorro films, where you start off with Baldwin as like the old Shadow?
Oh, and he teaches someone else to be like the young hip Shadow,
who's like today's version of Antonio Banderas.
Wait, are we recasting Zorro now? Is that what this is?
Yeah, but as the Shadow.
Oh God, that's such a complicated question. I'm really not sure who modern day Antonio Banderas is. Who's like Spanish and awesome? I can't.
There's definitely some out there, but Michael Pena.
You know what? Maybe I'm not against the idea.
He's in a serious film on Netflix I've not watched yet. And when I was watching the trailer, I thought, that looks just like Michael Pena.
In fact, I know who it is. He might not actually be Spanish, which, isn't probably neither here nor there. But Keon Alexander, who plays Marco Inaris in The Expanse?
Oh, yeah.
He might be new Zorro for me.
I could be into that for sure.
I think there's potential there. I don't know how he feels about the idea of being cast against his will as new Zorro /
Shadow.
But I can kind of see it,
Yeah.
Yeah. I reckon you put him in a suit, and why the hell not?
That is one thing as well. I think the Shadow's general look is pretty timeless.
Yeah, and it's that cliche kind of pulp look, but it is a look that I do think is cool.
Yeah, the long trench coat, the wide brim hat, and then just that dash of red over his mouth.
I will acknowledge now, and it's important that this is like noted, there was a point not even 10 years ago where I decided I was going to try and pull off the pulp look, and I had like a period of wearing suits for work and like a floor length leather trench coat, and even every now and again the hat as well. And I'll tell you, I looked like a fucking idiot. I went with it, and don't get me wrong, it's the hat. The hat's the problem. When you're just a guy in a suit with a trench coat, you're just trying to stay dry. When you're wearing a hat, you're an idiot.
Yeah, that might be the case.
But just something to think about. It's
something for future endeavours.
Should you ever decide that maybe pulp detective is the look you're going to go for a while? Yeah,
and it might be.
I mean, I think you've got it in you, So all in all, mixed feelings about the Shadow, but some good feelings, some bad feelings.
Absolutely, it sits very similarly to the Phantom, I think.
Yeah, I'm glad I've rewatched it. I don't know if I'm going to run back for another rewatch. Maybe 20 years between watching The Shadow is the agreed upon time.
I think so. Yeah, 20-year intervals.
So I think that might be our conclusion. What, you got anything else you want to add? Or
I think I've hit all the nails I wanted to hit. Cast great, story bad.
Yes, I very much agree with those sentiments. So I'd like to say this is the point where I think we've proven that comics are bigger than capes, but I don't know if that's what we've proven this week, Will.
Comics are still bigger than capes, despite our lack of acknowledging us.
And, I've been Zach, and I will continue to be, and I'm sure you'll continue to be Will, and will continue to be bigger than capes.